What a good start to a Monday for me. Teoscar Hernandez wins me $100. Can't really complain.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Blue Jays is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Just before we get into everything, as always, I'm Braden Wasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Wasco. Carter First, too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. As well, if you're new here to YouTube, following us, seeing our videos, drop a subscription, helps us out, keeps us at the top of your guys' feed. You get all up-to-date Blue Jays info. If you're listening anywhere else, like we said, we're probably going to do a mailbag episode sometimes this week, so make sure you guys submit your questions, your whatever, to us. Just put mailbag before your comment, and we'll make sure we get to that. You can also send them to us on Instagram and Twitter as well. I'm trying to update like the background here. I want to make it look better. I'm also in my 5x5 room right now, so I'm trying to figure something out. We've sort of started to do some stuff there, but it's a work in progress. Let me know if you guys have any ideas. Should I get like a bookshelf, or should I get like some signs or something? I don't know. It's hard because you can't hang things here, so we're working with what we got, Carter. Anyway, to start off the episode, I got to go over the bet. I was at work today. Me and Jim Toth, the host of the Jim Toth Show on 680 CJOB, we were sort of chatting about the home run derby. Everybody's sort of excited about it. I was sort of whatever this year, no Blue Jays in it. Didn't really have any skin in the game. But I'm like, you know what? Teo's fun to watch. I love watching him. 11-1 odds, tough to beat. So I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go $10 on Teo. Then Jim Toth looks at me and he goes, throw 5 for me on Bobby Witt. I'm like, okay. And my two guys were either, I was debating, were Teoscar or Gunnar. And good thing I did go Teo, is he did win me $110, or I guess I net $100, so sick. Just a good start to the day. The home run derby was something special, Carter. I'm not sure if you tuned into all of it or parts of it. I know you were at our baseball game last night. But what a weird day. The home run derby it just felt strange. Vlad was wearing a Teoscar Hernandez jersey for the entirety of the home run derby, which was awesome. It was really fun to see those two guys, still very close, still friends. And you could see it. Vlad's the one that put the necklace around him when he won. That was really, really cool to see. I love Teoscar. I've never, it sucks that we couldn't get him back this year because he was in talks to come back, and apparently the money wasn't right. The term wasn't right. So that sucks. At the end of the day, great to see him win. Former Blue Jay to win the home run derby. You know what? It's fun to cheer for him, especially when he's doing well. I went when the Dodgers were playing the Yankees. We were down in New York. We watched Teoscar Hernandez hit I sounded like Buck Martinez there, Teoscar Hernandez. But we saw Teo hit the grand slam against the Yankees. So it really, it just couldn't be better, besides maybe if it was a Blue Jay hitting that grand slam. Carter, I don't know. What'd you think of the Teoscar Hernandez win?
Yeah, the only round I actually could watch was the final round of Teoscar versus Bobby Witt. So I did get to watch the back end, I guess, of the home run derby. And my Twitter has already been flooded with people saying, oh, this Teoscar trade, why did we get rid of him? Swanson's so bad, blah, 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 blah. Again, like, Teoscar's a great player. Obviously would be very nice on this team with a team that's not hitting for a lot of power. But when you look at the situation that the Blue Jays have compared to the Dodgers, I mean, this guy is hitting behind Shohei Ohtani, Will Smith, Max Muncy. When Mookie Betts is playing, he's hitting behind him as well. Freddie Freeman, like, there's so many good players on this Dodgers team. When you look at the Jays, the only guy he could hide behind a little bit is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I guess you could argue Spencer Horwitz, maybe George Springer as of recently, but he has so much more protection in the Dodgers lineup. He is in such a better place to succeed that, yes, obviously Teoscar Hernandez's stats are going to be better in Los Angeles than they are with the Toronto Blue Jays. So overall in the year, he hit 261, 19 home runs. That's probably why he's in the home run derby. 62 RBIs, and OPS of 802. His career OPS is 802. So you got exactly the Teoscar Hernandez that you thought you were going to get when you signed him. Again, This is just more of a Ross Atkins. I know it sucks that obviously Teoscar Hernandez and ex-Blue Jay won in a sense, but obviously I'm rooting for Teoscar Hernandez. This is more of a Ross Atkins thing. If you would have got a power back, that this trade wouldn't look nearly as bad. Eric Swanson obviously is in AAA as well. If he performed as he was last year, this narrative wouldn't be as strong as it is right now. But congrats to Teoscar Hernandez. He had a little bit of a routine going where he just got it 15 to 20 feet over the left center field wall every single time. And that's what you got to do. He didn't really look like he was expending too much energy in his swings, especially in that final round. Wasn't breathing heavily whatsoever. So congrats to Teoscar Hernandez, kind of keeping the torch being moved around with the guys that are disconnected with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, sort of. It was great to see him. And I can't remember if it was the first or second home run he hit in that final round, but it was an absolute moonshot. And it was electric in there, and it was fun to watch. I'm usually not a big All-Star game guy, but I think out of all the sports, baseball has the best All-Star sort of home run derby and game. I think it's the closest to the real game that you're going to get in comparison to everything else. The NHL's whatever. The NFL's terrible. You might as well not even watch that. The NBA, I guess the dunk contest is sick usually, but even that's been getting more hit and miss. So the MLB one's fun to watch. The home run derby is amazing. Hopefully you guys tune in for the game today. I'll probably be tuning in. But then, Carter, another thing that I want to get to from the home run derby, and I know it's everywhere right now, dude, was the national anthem. It was bad. And I'm not usually one of those guys that wants to point anything out like that. It was bad. It panned to Vlad, and he had to do almost like a side eye when the camera was coming by him. He sort of was like, what's going on here? And that's exactly why I felt. Some guys were trying to hold in laughs. I'm not sure if it was Gunner or who it was, but I saw one of them like trying to badly to stop laughing. And I don't know. I felt terrible for the singer at the time, but then I'm like, also, what are we doing here? Like, this is the MLB. Why do you not have somebody that's proven a good singer? I don't know. And maybe this girl was a great singer. Maybe it was just a bad rendition. I don't know. It wasn't good. This is probably going to be on every MLB sort of podcast and everything out there talking about how bad the anthem was. I don't want to spew hate to this person. It just wasn't a good rendition at all. So I guess I am spewing hate. Whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah, it just reminded me of the one. It was in the NBA. I think if I had to guess, it's 2019. It's when Fergie did the national anthem.
Yeah.
That one went all over the place as well. I think this one was actually worse. I don't know what she was necessarily going for like a slower rendition, but the voice it just wasn't sounding good. It sounded like she almost woke up with like a sore throat or something. Again, you don't want to give her too hard of a time because there is a lot of things that go into it, a lot of emotions, a lot of nerves, obviously on the big stage with that many people at the home run derby. But I think her name it's Ingrid Andress, I think it is. I've never heard of this girl, but I'm also horrible for hearing about singers, celebrities, you name it. I'm very bad at putting face to the names unless they're professional athletes. But just not a great performance. Good thing that Teoscar Hernandez won, at least for Toronto Blue Jays fans. That kind of made up for that horrendous anthem singing. I'll be honest. At least there was no Canadian anthem that got botched in this event.
Yeah, there's been some bad ones over the years. Maybe one day we'll go back and sort of look at a couple. I don't know, maybe make a separate video on that because there has been some horrid ones over the years. But yeah, this one almost topped the cake for me just because just seeing Vlad's reaction, I couldn't stop laughing. And I'm like middle of my work day at this point, watching Vlad try to hold, like he looked like he was lost. Like he didn't know what was going on. Maybe he assumed it was a prank. It was not good. But at the end of the day, I'm guessing this girl is catching so much flack on Twitter that we don't need to pile on. But
not even. I'm just gonna read. I just looked it up just to try to get her name. And the first couple articles are MLB Home Run Derby National Anthem was a star-spangled mess. Country star strikes out with fans after anthem disaster at Home Run Derby. So the internet's definitely going at this girl. I do feel bad for her. She's probably going to be seeing this for a while. Definitely going to be a meme at all of the home run derbies. Again, sucks for her, but when you're on the big stage, you're getting paid to be there when you have that big of a platform. And this is your opportunity to kind of show out where people can see you on the big stage. To have a performance like that is a little bit unfortunate for the career. No, it's cool back-to-back years that Teo could be there for Vladdy, obviously, in 2023, and then now Vladdy is there for Teo. As you said, Vladdy did have the Teoscar Hernandez jersey on. So it's cool to see those two just being close, being the best of friends, and it definitely sucks that we used to have this connection on the Blue Jays. We used to have such a good duo on this team, and now we're just down to Vladdy just launching baseballs in orbit.
Yeah, it's too bad, especially after seeing the season that Teo's had and how electric he is to watch all the time. And he seems like a very down to earth guy. It really is a dagger. And I know we've seen some of you guys comment that as well about how disappointing it is not for him not to be a Toronto Blue Jay. And oh, is it ever? We have some rankings to get into our pitching rotation halfway rankings. We're going to give these guys rankings based on their expectations at the beginning of the season, not based overall. Some guys might have better rankings or worse rankings, but it all makes sense when we look back at the start of this season. So we'll hit a quick break and we'll be right back for the first little bit of our rotation rankings. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As you guys all know, I love FanDuel. They helped me win the Teoscar Hernandez bet yesterday on the home run derby. Won me about $110. Can't complain. Usually I like to go with their live same game parlays. It seems like the best opportunity to win. We'll see what happens. I'm going to continue to bet on the Jays. The problem is they keep letting me down. I love sports and I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever, wherever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream about any bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer.
Today's episode is also sponsored by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is very simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entries in as little as 60 seconds. So obviously we are in the middle of All-Star Week. I have the AL winning. Obviously, I want Vladdy to be able to win an MVP again. So that's why I do have Vladdy. I also have Bobby Witt, more than 0.5 hits. Depends how long they're in these games for. Usually it's at max 3 innings. So we'll have to see. Hopefully, Vladdy can continue his greatness in the All-Star games and bring home another accolade. But if you know which players are going to perform on specific nights, this is a no-brainer. Download PrizePicks and start making your picks today. You can download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100.
So, Carter, pitcher rankings, the starting rotation. Of course, it was a little bit all over the place at the beginning of this season. Not sure who we were going to expect. If it was going to be Alek Manoah, if it was going to be Yariel Rodriguez, if it was going to be Bowden Francis, who knows, a little bit all over the map. But now with Alek Manoah being out, the starting 5 are Kevin Gausman, Jose Berrios, Chris Bassitt, Yusei Kikuchi, and of course, Yariel Rodriguez. So, Carter, I think we start with the man of the hour, the guy who, going into this season, we all expected to be this team's ace, be this team's leader in the rotation. That is Kevin Gausman. Obviously, 19 games started, 1 complete game, 1 game shutout. He's pitched 104 innings, a win-loss record of 7-8. An ERA of 4.5, a whip of 1.31, 104 strikeouts to 27 walks, and he has given up 15 home runs this season. Kevin Gausman, Carter, is not what I expected him to be this year. He hasn't been bad. He had a very, very rough start to the year, but has been fairly solid, but not necessarily the Kevin Gausman we expected. The win-loss record, as we've talked about, is complete BS. And it is a complete wasted stat because, like we've seen, this team doesn't put up runs in most of this season, and pitchers get labeled with losses that they probably shouldn't have. But overall, I still think Kevin Gausman was under expectations. And when we set expectations, we set them at going into the season, wherever we had it, it would be a C. A C would be meeting expectations or exactly what we expected. So, Carter, I'm going to throw it to you before I give my official ranking on Kevin Gausman. Where does he land with you and maybe why?
Yeah, with Kevin Gausman, it's a tough start. I'm just gonna preface this by saying though that a guy like Kevin Gausman, who's gotten Cy Young votes in his career compared to a guy like Yariel Rodriguez, we're probably gonna give Kevin Gausman a little bit of a harder ranking scale compared to Yariel, especially because Yariel just didn't pitch any innings and Kevin Gausman receiving Cy Young votes. But one of the biggest reasons that I have seen that Kevin Gausman has been struggling a little bit more this season than he has in previous years is the split fingered fastball. It's just his whip percentage, the amount of Ks he's getting off this pitch. His splitter last season and the season before were absolutely ridiculous. Some of the swings this guy was getting on these pitches were nuts. Again, the MLB term we like to use on this podcast, people were swinging a garden hose out there against Kevin Gausman. But just looking at his whiff percentage on this especially this split fingered fastball over the last 3 seasons, this season he has a 33% whiff percentage, which still isn't bad. But in 2023, he had a 43.2, and in 2022, he had a 44.1. The K percentage in 2022 was 42.2, in 2023, 41.9. This season, 29.1. It's tough out here. It's tough for Kevin Gausman, that split fingered fastball, because with the splitter, if it's not going to drop off the face of the earth, if you hang it a little bit, it's a lot easier for these players to get a hold of it, kind of sit on that splitter, especially if it is dropping out of the zone, and then they hit the fastball a lot better. And that shows in the batting average as well. So Kevin Gausman, you look in 2023, his batting average off the fastball, 243. This season, it is 298. Expected slugging off the fastball is 521 this season. Last season, it was 409. So when the splitter's not as good, obviously the fastball is going to suffer. It allows players to sit on this fastball a little bit more often. So Kevin Gausman, that has been a major struggle for him as well. Another thing that I also have found interesting is his home and away splits for some reason this season. Kevin Gausman has a 7.19 ERA at home and a 2.34 ERA on the road. So does Kevin Gausman hate Canada? Does Kevin Gausman hate the Rogers Center? Maybe he's just done with the Blue Jays organization. Maybe he's done just not getting run support ever. All of last season did not get much run support. Maybe he's just kind of sick of the Rogers Center and wants to get away from there. But overall, I'm going to throw it back to you first. What is your grade for Kevin Gausman for this season?
Yeah, and just maybe before I get into that, talking about the home and away splits, I mean, there's a lot that goes into this. Teams played. I mean, you could play better teams at home, and that just might be where we're at so far this year. You could play, your team could have been better, and it helps as a pitcher when your team scores runs early, or if your team doesn't score runs early at home. That's just there's a lot of statistics that go into that. I don't really put a whole lot of emphasis on that statistic either. But overly, I mean, the what you said about the splitter is exactly what the problem is. I mean, I think you can't look too far past that without understanding that that's a problem. In saying that, like I said, this rating scale is going to be difficult for Kevin Gausman because we had such high expectations going into this year. I have him as a C minus, so he's doing worse than how maybe I expected him to do. I still think he's having an okay season. It's tough after seeing what he can do and where this team is to not give him a lower rating than what sort of I expected at the start of this year.
Yeah, he's shown flashes of old Kevin Gausman, but he's also had a few games where his splitter just hasn't been working. He hasn't been locating very well, so I also have him as a C minus. I don't think it's been terrible. He's still been a serviceable pitcher. We have seen the flashes, but he hasn't put it together consistently. He hasn't put together his regular numbers, and that comes as a problem with that splitter, with that fastball, the way he uses those 2 pitches. But overall, yeah, you do want to see more from Kevin Gausman. But is Kevin Gausman the reason that this team is 8 games under 500 at the All-Star break? Absolutely not. Maybe this is a bigger conversation if the Toronto Blue Jays offense is better, if their bullpen actually has a pulse. Maybe the spotlight is a little bit more on Kevin Gausman. But the way the things have went this season, definitely not blaming this too much on Kevin Gausman. But this is going to move me into my second ranking. So we both had a C minus, obviously, for Kevin Gausman there. So I'm going to go into Jose Berrios. Jose Berrios had an unbelievable start to the season, being the April pitcher of the month. Just look crazy. He was in the Cy Young conversation for a little bit there, which was obviously a little bit overdone. Anyway, I shouldn't say nobody. Most Blue Jays fans probably believe that Jose Berrios was kind of going to go back to his career averages, being a very solid pitcher, but never really a Cy Young guy. This year, again, his April stats, really, really good. His May stats get a little bit worse. June stats get a little bit worse. I'll just go over his ERA in retrospect to those. So his April ERA was 1.19. Obviously, that's really good. Over 37.2 innings pitched. Only 5 earned runs. 12 walks, 25 Ks. And Jose Berrios' biggest problem is he's leading the league in home runs given up. That has been where a lot of teams have done the damage on him. So you go into May, his ERA goes up all the way to 4.70. June, it's a 4.85. July, again, small sample size, but an 8.4. So that is how the ERA has started to inflate. ERA isn't everything, but a huge stat is not allowing runners to get on you, get across to home plate. Because with Toronto Blue Jays offense, Toronto Blue Jays bullpen, you want to limit as much damage as possible. Both Jose Berrios, the slurve has been working pretty well. He has hung it a few times. That's what I've noticed has gotten him into trouble. The sinker's been a decent pitch as well for him. The fastball, not great. Jose Berrios' off speed is better than his fastballs and his sinkers, but overall, his control has suffered a little bit over these last couple weeks, especially this last month, and that is why you've seen this inflation with his ERA.
Yeah, and it's just too bad to see, right? Because I think we were all very excited at the beginning of this season. We were like, it sort of blew every expectation out of the water. And that's why my ranking is a little bit deceiving, because I still have that image of Jose Berrios in my mind from the beginning of this year. I was over the moon. I couldn't have been happier with him. And then, yeah, like you said, it's fallen off. But I think still now I look at how Jose Berrios has been this season, and I can't not give him a decent ranking, because he is better than I expected. He is different than I expected. Jose Berrios for me is a B. If he would have continued, he could have been an A++ at this point. He could have had, if it's a school grade, it could have been 115% out of 100. So whatever it is, Jose Berrios could have been great. That ranking has dropped as of late, but I still like a B grade. He is better than expected, and I fully believe that still.
I was really fighting between a B- here and a C+. I decided to go with C+. Just I think because of the recency bias, just hasn't been very good as of late. And just with your entire temperament for this team, it's hard to be excited about a team that's 8 games below 500. Again, overall, Jose Berrios, is it his fault Toronto Blue Jays aren't in this situation? No, it's going to be a common theme with the starting pitching. You could say that about literally everyone on this team. I don't think anyone has been horrendous out of these starting pitchers. And it has definitely been the best facet of the Toronto Blue Jays so far this season. So Jose Berrios, probably could give him a B-. I'm okay with the C+ here, though. Above average, but over the last couple months, just hasn't necessarily been where you want him to be. So that's going to take me into our next guy, the top 3 guys, I would say, in this rotation. Chris Bassitt. And Chris Bassitt kind of had the opposite of this Jose Berrios experience. Chris Bassitt, as everyone should know, pretty much throws a million pitches. He's going to throw something different to you every single time you're up at the plate. And that's what makes him so effective. He's not going to blow you away with miles per hour. He's not going to blow you away with velocity. He's going to blow you away with a pitch mix because he's a gamer. He's going to blow you away with the stuff he has. And that is exactly what Chris Bassitt does. So overall, again, I said he had the opposite kind of experience as Jose Berrios. In March, this guy, again, you don't play a lot of games in March, but 7.2 ERA, April 5.33. May, it was a 2.40 ERA, and June was a 1.95. Just continued to get better and better over this season, obviously contributing to his stats right now. Chris Bassitt, I think, has gotten his ERA down to about 3.5, which is the best out of the starters on this team. Chris Bassitt is kind of going to be the same as Jose Berrios in a lot of aspects. The advanced analytics won't necessarily look great for them, but they get a lot of soft contact. They don't get a ton of strikeouts. They put the ball in play. They rely on their defense, and they eat up innings, and that's exactly what you need from your third, second. Again, debate even on this year, maybe he's your best pitcher in the starting rotation.
Yeah, Chris Bassitt's a tough guy to really put my finger on, and I think that's with a lot of people. I think he's a great veteran, and he knows his role. He knows what he has to do out there, and a lot of it is just getting in a routine for him and getting in through the motions a little bit, and he's done that with grace. Honestly, he's been fantastic, and I really have nothing to complain about with him. Carter, at the end of the day, I mean, Chris Bassitt to me was probably the biggest change from, and I probably should expect this from Chris Bassitt, but in my head, I didn't going into this season. I didn't know he was going to be doing this well. I didn't really expect what we've seen from him. So in that sense, I got to give Chris Bassitt a B+ here. I think he has been the most, not exciting. Exciting's the wrong word. Surprising, I think, is what it should be, because he is debatably, like you said, the best guy on this team. And I think if you give him anything lower than a B right now, I think that's pretty criminal.
See, I have Chris Bassitt as a B plus, but not exactly for the reasoning that you did. You said it was a little bit unexpected. Chris Bassett's ERA is 3.49 over his career. He's giving you a 3.52. This is exactly the Chris Bassitt I thought we were going to get. This is a guy that just eats innings, a guy that can just overcome adversity, whether he has 4 days of rest, whether he has 6 days of rest, whether he's playing a morning game, an afternoon game, a night game. He just seems to throw out the exact same performance almost every single time he goes out there, usually going to give you a chance to win. And that's why Chris Bassitt has pretty much been as I've expected. But with the team right now, with your starting pitching, a lot of your guys not necessarily performing up to par. That's why I gave him a B plus. I have nothing bad to say about Chris Bassitt, a guy that could be moved to the trade deadline. And maybe I'm contradicting myself a little bit with this as expected. Maybe I should be closer down to a C, a C plus. But I think Chris Bassitt, this is exactly what you wanted when you signed him. So I'm easily giving Chris Bassitt a B plus at this point of his career.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to sort of what I was trying to say is that it's not surprising what he's done because he is a veteran. He's been doing this for a very long time. And sort of the exact same thing, like you said, it's in relation to everybody else. I didn't expect Chris Bassitt to come out here and debatably be our best pitcher. That is what the surprising aspect is for me. Not necessarily the type of baseball he's bringing to the field every day. I think that is pretty much what we expected, what we knew. But yeah, and maybe that's a testament to the other guys not being as good, more so than Chris Bassitt being better than expected. So maybe you're right. Maybe this should have been closer to a C, but in relation, you got to give him the B plus because he has been fun to watch this season. And Carter, I think that moves us to our number 4, a guy who me and you have loved the past few years, and that's Yusei Kikuchi. He's played 20 games, 106 innings, a win-loss record. Who this guy gets screwed for the past 2 seasons, 3 seasons consistently, going 4-8 on the season with a win-loss record. Again, take that with a grain of salt. ERA of a 4.42, and a WHIP of a 1.3. He has 117 strikeouts to 26 walks. Just an insane statistic from Yusei Kikuchi. Has given up 16 home runs. Carter, this is a guy that he's very polarizing because you can go out there and you can think, wow, Yusei Kikuchi is pitching great through 4 innings, and then he gives up 3 runs in an inning, and then the next inning he gives up 3 runs, and you're like, what happened? Or he starts the game giving up 4 runs and then pitches 4 scoreless, and you've no idea what has happened. And that's a little bit of what I expect with Yusei Kikuchi. I think when he's on and he's cooking and he's getting strikeouts, it's great. And I think that goes back to his strikeout to walk ratio a little bit. And that's sort of my biggest thing is he doesn't walk a lot of batters, but he might leak a few pitches over the middle quite often. And that's what hurts him more so than the walks themselves. Carter, I'll throw it to you, give you an explanation, then we'll come back for my complete ranking here on him.
Yeah, Yusei Kikuchi, the fireballing left-handed pitcher on the Toronto Blue Jays, a guy that's career was pretty much revived, maybe by Pete Walker, maybe by a little bit of the work, obviously a lot of the work that he put in the offseason. And a lot of that contribution was from his curveball. He threw his curveball 0.3% of the time in 2022. When he got up to 2023, 2024, that started to get closer to 20%. And that's how we saw that ERA drop. Yusei Kikuchi is a guy that we're doing this midseason review on because that's probably all we're going to get out of Yusei Kikuchi is this midseason. The guy that is probably the most realistic to be traded at this trade deadline. So you got to enjoy these Yusei Kikuchi starts when we're getting them. Not the greatest start last time out, but the time before that, a career high of 13 strikeouts. What a performance from Yusei Kikuchi. Again, sort of a guy that is doing it's sort of what I thought he was going to do. Is Yusei Kikuchi the problem with the Toronto Blue Jays team? As I've said multiple other times already, no, he's definitely not. Yusei Kikuchi, as an expectation standpoint, I think he's been the second best pitcher from an expectation point, maybe a third. As I probably have him as a third, as I'm going to get into the last pitcher here. But Yusei Kikuchi, I have nothing bad to say about him. I just, honestly, at this point, all I can say is I wish him the best for whichever team he ends up on, assuming that we do move on from him, and hopefully they give him a chance to go ring chasing and get his first World Series.
Yeah, and as we sort of talked about, he's a guy that is probably going to be moved, and that's very brutal to see because I think he's gotten sort of the bad end of the stick when it comes to these wins and losses, and I think that it's something people look at but probably shouldn't, but it does, and that sucks for him. And I really hate to see that he's going to be the guy that's getting moved on from, but he's been a guy that's very, very steady. You know what you're going to get from him, and I think a lot of teams like that. Carter, that's why he's dead center. He's at a C for me. He's exactly what I expected. Not a ton more and not a ton less. He's just Yusei Kikuchi, the guy that we've loved for the past couple seasons.
See, I got him a lot higher than you. It looks like I have him at a B minus. I think it's hard to find good left-handed pitching. I still have a little bit of doubt from the 2022 season. I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to keep it consistent from the 2023 season. As we've seen it, he didn't start out great, but then had a really good next 2 months. Again, has fallen off a little bit as of late. Seems like it's a trend for most of these starting pitchers other than Chris Bassitt. But yeah, with Kikuchi, I think he's been not necessarily a surprise, but a pleasant signing to say the least. Definitely got the value over our last 3 years. Just sucks that he's going to end up going. I think Yusei Kikuchi, for a left-hander, for a team that just has struggled to find good left-handed pitching for a consistent amount of time, it is nice that you kind of scored on a contract with Yusei Kikuchi, and that's why I have him as a B minus. We do have one more pitcher to get into, but this segment has run a little bit long, so we're going to take a little short break here. Before we do that, just want to throw it over to the Locked On 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today, or the Amazon Fire TV's channel app. Whether it's the MLB, NFL, NHL, NBA, whether it's women's basketball, college sports, you name it, perfect opportunity to check out expert analysis at any time throughout the day. We got Yariel Rodriguez to cover, and then I'm going to kind of throw it over to both of us after for overall starting pitching grade throughout this season. But we have a quick short message to get to you guys, so we'll get into all of that coming up after this short break.
Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rivals' cities with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find the perfect stay even in your baseball rivals' cities, as I've talked about many times. We are big fans of Booking.com. We used it to go to Toronto. We used it to go to New York. And we're going to be using it to go to Minneapolis in the next few months here. So I really suggest it. It just makes everything so much easier. And I have nothing more good to say about Booking.com. The rates they can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com or the site or in the Booking.com app. Carter threw me a little bit for a curveball. I'll say he said he's got some message to tell me here. So I don't know what you meant by that, but
The short message was you going over the ad. That's all the short message was.
oh, okay, cool. Okay, I thought you maybe were giving me your resignation letter or something. Maybe you got a better offer. I thought maybe Sportsnet called or something.
Oh well, I tried to do that, but then you threw a big fit off camera there. You're like, please stay, keep the podcast together. I'm like, yeah, I know I do. The fans like the takes here, obviously a little bit more than yours. No, I'm just kidding, but. We do snap it around here on this podcast, and I'm not surprised that we do have fairly similar ratings. I think that last one was the first rating that we had like significantly off. So we had no prior discussion. This has kind of just been how we felt throughout the season. But obviously, we are watching these baseball games together. We are sharing our thoughts pretty much every single game anyway. So doesn't surprise me too much that they ended up being at least sort of close for this. But one more guy. I'll throw it back to you just for Yariel.
And just for that, right? I think, well, talking about Yusei Kikuchi, I think it's exactly in my head. I've always had an overblown version of Yusei Kikuchi in my head because I've loved him so much as a player that I feel like he's exactly what that false image is in my head. So I think that's part of it, and maybe that's a little bit contradictory of what I said about Chris Bassitt as well. So I don't know. You could take them or leave them. Tell us what you guys think as well. We want to know because. Yeah, like Carter said, me and him talk about this all the time. We have our arguments, don't get me wrong, about different things. But, it's hard when you're two guys who love baseball all the time. It's hard to just save it all for the podcast all the time. So sometimes we do let him out. But this one actually was sort of cool. We kept these sort of private with me working sort of nights, Carter working during the day. Yeah, we haven't actually had a ton of time to talk just baseball sitting on the couch. So, but in saying that, let's get into the man who we weren't sure we were going to see this season or in what role or what was going to happen. And that's Yariel Rodriguez. I was very happy with this signing. I think when you go back and listen to the episode where we talked about him being signed, I think we were both pretty happy with what we've seen, even though we, obviously couldn't see much. The deal that this team got him on was I think very solid. They didn't necessarily know how it would translate to the MLB. but very good in that sense. And this is a guy that obviously had a little bit of injury troubles and halfway through the season. Didn't know where his role was going to be with Alek Manoah and Bowden Francis or what those guys were going to do. But so far this season, Carter, 8 games played, 33 and a third innings pitched, a win-loss again of 1-3, ERA of 3.78, and a whip of 1.38 with 36 strikeouts, 18 walks, has only given up 3 home runs. Carter, I'm not going to lie to you. This is a guy that it was hard to have any expectation of before this because you didn't really know what to expect. And I think a lot of people said that in that episode. We read some of the comments like, well, how is he going to be? And we sort of went over that. But, it's hard to really, it's sort of like a prospect. You don't really know what you're going to get. You sort of just have to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And it looks like so far this season, Yariel Rodriguez has been sticking to that wall.
My only issue so far with Yariel Rodriguez is that it has been a small sample size.
Yeah, of course.
He's still 31 in a third innings. Obviously had some injury troubles. Just hasn't been worked up as a starting pitcher. But yeah, like you said, he didn't play baseball in 2023 whatsoever. His last time, I think, was the 2022 World Baseball Classic. Or maybe it was the 2023 World Baseball Classic. It wasn't that. Oh, it was 2022. There you go. So it was a while before Yariel Rodriguez played competitive baseball. So he comes back in 2024, obviously having a bullpen role in his Japan League before, being worked up as a starter, but he has looked very good as a starter, saying that obviously with an ERA under 4, has a good pitch mix. I like his fastball. I like how he kind of looks like an insane person on the mound, looks like a little bit of a psychopath. But that's how you need your pitchers to be. You need your pitchers to be killers on the mound. You need your pitchers to want to be competitive and have competitive at-bats. That's what Yariel Rodriguez does. I have noticed that some of his command has been a little bit troubling, but he hasn't really been punished for it at all. So I guess you can't really hate on the results. But his slider, it is a nasty pitch, but sometimes he does kind of hang that slider over the plate. The fastball command, especially over the last 2 starts, I've noticed has gotten a whole lot better. He's starting to rack up the strikeouts a little bit, starting to get the swing and miss. That's exactly what you need from a guy like Yariel Rodriguez, a guy that's going to be here for a significant period of time, 4 more years after this season if the Blue Jays pick up all of his options. Looking at his K percentage, 71st percentile in the league. He doesn't give up a very high barrel percentage at 80%. Ground ball percentage, 42%. His extension, 61. Kind of middle of the tier stats, but for a guy, again, that doesn't have any MLB experience, I think I was pleasantly surprised with how Yariel Rodriguez has adjusted to the MLB. Especially when you have Alek Manoah obviously going down with a season-ending injury. Bowden Francis just has not looked like the Bowden Francis that I hoped he was going to look like. So as a 5th starter with limited options, Yariel Rodriguez for me has been a pleasant surprise. So I got him as a B rating. I think it has been above expectations. Again, maybe we're a little bit lenient with Yariel Rodriguez based off of these expectations. But I think that we couldn't have asked for a better 5th reliever or 5th starter, I should say, especially with the background that Yariel Rodriguez had. I think he can only work up from this. He'll have another year with the pitching staff, another year under Pete Walker, and I think he can only get better from how he has been so far this season.
Yeah, Carter, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a B+. I love the look of this guy, and to have 4 more years with him, I am just thrilled because you're only going to see growth. This is his first year. He got put into a role that I think the Blue Jays themselves and him probably wasn't necessarily ready for, but their hand was pushed. A lot of stuff didn't go the Blue Jays' way this season, and Yariel was sort of thrust into this role. And I think he's handled it very, very well. And that's why I've slotted him in at the B+, because him coming over didn't expect to be a starter in his first year with the club. And so from what he did, from what we expected, I have to give him the B+. I think that's exactly where he needs to land.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It could definitely be debated. I think we're both on the same page where it's over expectation. He's been a pleasant surprise, and hopefully he can continue to hold down at least the back end of this rotation for a significant period of time. One thing you got to look at is you got Jose Berrios, obviously, for a few more years. Alek Manoah might be your future here as well. Then you got Yariel Rodriguez. Then you got Ricky Tiedemann, guys like that. And obviously, the Blue Jays did draft Trey Savage, but again, this is a prospect. You can't really rely on him. He has looked good at the college level, but these are some of the guys that could be your future over the next few seasons. So seeing some success from Yariel Rodriguez at this point, definitely nice to see. So I'm not going to go too in depth about this, but just a quick starting pitching overall ranking for me. I have them at a B. I think it's been good. It hasn't been amazing, hasn't been as good as it was last year, but this is the best part of this team right now, which may or may not be unfortunate to say. Pretty much everyone's from a 3.75 ERA to a 4.5. Nobody's playing spectacular. Nobody's being horrendous. They're being serviceable for starting pitching. They're giving this team a chance to win majority of the time. And that's what you need from your starting pitching. Obviously, the bullpen's not pulling up there out of the bargain. The offense, as they have been better of late overall at the start of the season, this offense watching it was just making my head hurt at a lot of different times. But overall, got to see how this starting pitching, if it's kind of deformed at the deadline, if it's taken apart, destructed, we'll see what has to happen. Ross Atkins has come out and said he's only going to trade guys on expiring contracts. But if there's a team that's very interested in Chris Bassitt, is willing to give up a ton of good prospects, same with Kevin Gausman, that's something they might have to assess. But overall, for me, looking at the starting pitching, definitely not the problem. I'm fully okay with giving them a B.
Yeah, I was debating going back and forth between a B and a B plus, Carter. And going into the season, me and you talked about regression, that there was going to be regression, that we couldn't hold them to that type of standard. And to be honest with you, the way that they looked at the beginning of this season, I'm going a B plus. I think the starting rotation has been very, very good. And it's tough probably mentally on all of them to go out there time and time again and throw good games and come out and get the loss. I think that's mentally draining. I think that's just brutal, or no decision. I shouldn't say just loss or the no decision. But it's got to be draining. It really does. And they're trying to hold this team together, the five of them. And that's just never going to work. And yes, as of late, the offense has been better and the bullpen's been terrible. But this starting rotation has always been a bright spot on this team the past 2 seasons. And I've been very thrilled with them. I really have zero complaints. And it's going to be sad to see some of these guys have to leave at the deadline. Very limited, very, I can't stress this enough. So limited options. If you do trade these guys away, who do you bring up now to replace them is the big question. With Ricky T out, I believe it's Baroa. What's his name?
That's Stuart Baroa is a different guy, but Brandon Berrios is also injured. Adam Mako is also hurt. There's a ton of different prospects that are hurt on this team, which is unfortunate. For an already depleted pool, you definitely want to be able to restock. So if that comes at selling some of this starting pitching, I think you unfortunately have to do that. And again, I know that, like, I'm just going to get into this real quick. If, say, Kevin Gausman just had no wins on the season, he got a million no decisions. Obviously, you don't want the loss in the season, because if you get the loss, that obviously means you did not win the baseball game. Yeah. But if somehow they were getting no decisions and they ended up winning baseball games, I'm sure they wouldn't really care. They don't really care about their individual stats. They want to win as a team. Just hasn't happened this season, and it's definitely mentally deflating, like you just said. If you're going out there, you're giving up 1-2 runs, you're making 1 mistake, 2 mistakes in the ball game, and you're getting the loss for making those 2 mistakes because your offense or the bullpen, whatever it is, cannot win the baseball game for you. But there are our starting pitching rankings. We'll probably get into the bullpen, add some other offensive rankings throughout the week as well. Those ones might go a little bit quicker, obviously with the starting rotation only being 5 players. The bullpen, there's so many just bad pitchers. It's just going to be a lot of probably horrible ratings. And then as for the starters, we'll probably get into 12 to 13 of them. I definitely want to throw in Spencer Horwitz, Leo Jimenez, those kind of guys in there. Also have to go into the Kevin Kiermaier, Alejandro Kirk types. But saying that, thank you guys for watching. We do appreciate the likes, comments, all of the debates, the support we get from you guys is awesome to see. Whether it is good or bad, obviously we do appreciate the good ones more than the bad ones, but I do kind of enjoy looking at the bad ones as well, depending on what they are. Some of them are pretty funny to me. We have noticed that about 68% of you guys are not subscribed. So you guys are continuing to come back to the videos, watching our podcast every single day. So the subscription helps us out a ton, also keeps our podcast at the top of your page. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, any of those streaming platforms, be sure to leave a review, because that's the same thing. Helps us out a ton and gets our content out to different people. We can continue to grow our community and inspire some more debates. But one more thing, I want to throw it over to Locked On 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today, Amazon Fire TV's channel app. Expert analysis anytime throughout the day. Be sure to check that out. But Braden, we're getting through the All-Star break. No Blue Jays baseball to cover. Not going to lie, hasn't been the worst thing of all time for me. Just not watching this bullpen blow a game this week.
Yeah, man, it's a good little bit of a head clearer for sure. It sucks though, because I'm at work, and when I do the 1:30 9:30s, it's our sports show throughout the night, and usually we throw on the Blue Jays game. And there's no Blue Jays game to throw on. Good thing I did win some money on the home run derby tonight, so that was fun to watch. But yeah, the rest of the week, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't. I mean, got Bombers later in the week, so that'll be fun as well. But yeah, like Carter said, we do really appreciate the support. The subscribers have been jumping a little bit here in the past couple days. And don't get me wrong, we totally get it. It is sometimes frustrating watching this team, and maybe you don't want to go click on the podcast after. But hopefully, we give you guys something that that you can consume, on the daily, and that you like sort of listening to us and sitting here being a part of the conversation. That's our biggest thing. We want to try to make you guys feel as much a part of this as some of us do. So whenever we decide to go live again, if you guys want us to do that, we definitely can take some of your guys' questions. And make sure you guys leave the comments for the mailbag coming up later this week as well. Really appreciate it, guys. And
there's one more thing I just do want to bring up as well. If the Toronto Blue Jays baseball continues to just drop with our expectations, say the Toronto Blue Jays somehow get to, like, I don't even want to say this, but 15, 20 games below 500, we can start switching up the content a little bit, making it a little bit more fun. I have some segment ideas in mind that are just a little bit more they're easing into. They're not as much baseball related. They're more just kind of having fun with it. So we can get into that if this Toronto Blue Jays season does go more awry. But again, we'll get into that later on this week, maybe next week as well. Hopefully the Toronto Blue Jays baseball does get better. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.